Rich Pickett with Personal Wings. Tigre and I are here at this P210. Before we talk about the P210 in particular, let's talk about the 210 series. It's an amazing airplane. I've co-owned at least one of these, and I've been flying these guys for over 40 years. The 210, as part of the entire Cessna series, has a lot of similarities, but some strategic differences. The 210 was originally developed to counter some of the other aircraft like the Bonanza and so forth when it was first developed. And the 210 at that time also had struts. Then later on with a cantilevered wing, as you see it, more of the modern 210s, then they took those struts off and cantilevered and strengthened the wing to be able to do that and also gain a little bit of speed. Let's talk about the plane. One of the cool facts just before this is it's basically the same size as a 182 dimensionally, length and width, as well as a 206. A little differences sometimes with the wingspan and so forth, but fascinating, but it's how big they do the cabin. So in the 210 series, which has been known for its incredible load capacity, just like the 206, but of course all the modern 210s and the P210s are retractable gear. So that changed from the early models of some of the first 210s. They have had a lot of different engines over the years to be able to power these. They're all Continental engines on these aircraft, and we'll talk a little bit about this. They're just beefy planes. They're just really cool. It's like the 206 that we have. We call the 206 the Beast, and it really is. Same thing with the 210s. The 210s will be faster than the 206. Useful loads, it depends. Like our useful load on our T206H is around 1,400 pounds. These vary. It depends upon the models of the T210s and the P210s, the pressurized 210s, which are a little bit less because, of course, they have to do pressurization. But we'll walk around this, talk a little bit about the 210, and show you this beautiful P210 that we fly. So this particular one is a 1981 P210N. They ended with the R series in the mid-80s. They just stopped making it, which is too bad. It's a great airplane. Their pressurization system is a little bit over 3 psi, so that gives you some comfortable internal cabin pressurization up to around 20, in the low 20s, 23,000. I like to fly them in the teens because it's more comfortable, easier on the turbos, etc. for the P210s. But we'll take you around and show some of these the features of these airplanes. So this particular one also has air conditioning. We'll talk a little bit about that a little later. Some of them you'll find have different vents on the side, these scoops. This has a Riley intercooler. So the Riley intercooler is really helpful for the 210 series because it helps lower those temperatures down from the turbocharger. So it gives you more power. Cooler the air you have going into the engine, the more power you're going to be able to achieve, as well as keep some temperatures down. Different types of windshields that are out there. Some have heated plates that go on the outside for flight into known icing, also called Fiki. Some of the 210 series will also have de-ice boots as part of that flight into known icing capability from the factory. You can put a weeping wing with TKS fluid that has titanium leading edges that are laser drilled, as well as other devices that will disperse the TKS fluid, for example, around the windshield and around the prop from Cav Air, and you can do that as an aftermarket. I think they used to be around 30,000, probably over a little bit over 40,000 for the upgrade now. So on the airplane, this series in particular, like we talked about, doesn't have struts. They had changed the gear over the different years. When they originally came out with the retractable gear, they had this very complex door mechanism. And so there was a capability of a retrofit to actually take those doors off, which simplifies the gear retraction, because what would happen is as this gear comes up, some people call it, looks like a duck as it's moving in there. The doors would jam, but now all these have been removed, and on this one in particular, this has been removed as well. You'll notice on this plane, on the windows, these are different than the 210 windows. You notice the shape of them in here because this is pressurized aircraft, right? The P210. So what they've done is they do these windows, of course, with the smooth edges around because it's less stress on the airframe and on the windows. And then they have these, and then on the pressurized 210, there's only one door. The other door actually has you can open them up in a window, but it's not really a door. So coming along here on this plane, so this one is in really nice shape. People ask me, especially when they're first time flying with me, what's the mirror for? And I said, that's because pilots really want to look cool when they land. So you want to straighten your hat, make sure your shades are on, comb your hair, and that way it gives you an eye before you step out of the airplane. Or you could use it to check the gear, which is what we really use it for, because with this thing, we can look at here and make sure we can see the gears down. So it's a safety mechanism in through there. Of course, our pitot system. This particular P210 has an Alpha Systems angle of attack, which is awesome. One of my favorite things to fly with. This is also heated, so this can give you great landing guidance as you're landing, so you get that perfect speed at 1.3 times the stall speed or whatever configuration you're in before landing, and also of course that adjusts for weight. So these are awesome, the Alpha Systems angle of attack. Of course we've got our stall sensor in there. This particular plane, it's got nice paint. Notice that the paint's in really good condition in through here. So this has all been touched up as it's come along through here. This has, of course, the gear. You can see the gear coming back here that we talked about and how it retracts up into here. So this is kind of a good way to see how that works. So that all retracts into that wheel well in through there. Very clever design to be able to take that gear on these large gear legs, turn and twist and fit in there. The baggage compartment, this one opens up like here. This also has an auxiliary tank underneath here. So it's really cool. So there's an auxiliary tank that fits in here, and it is already in here. And so to give us some extra fuel capacity in here. So we've got this, got a nice sized room, baggage compartment. So all the 210s will have baggage compartment of one type or another. This is one of our vents for air conditioning. You'll see those on the side of airplanes. These are abrasion boots. So these abrasion boots, and they really are good because they don't inflate like de-icing boots, but they're enough to keep rocks and so forth from damaging the leading edge of your horizontal stabilizer. So if you look for airplanes, I suggest you always look for one that has them, or you put them on. To install them, between the two of them, it's probably around $1,200. Just to give you an idea. I know, because we just did that on our 206. So come across here. Of course, we have static wicks for the precipitation static to helps the avionics and so forth, as well as lightning strikes. In theory, it's supposed to come out. So we come through here, and our lights come up here. We're checking the plane. We're not doing a full pre-flight right now to check all the bearings in here. This is mainly just giving you an idea of what's on the airplane. What we'll typically do when we fly, but I'll show you anyway, is I very carefully push in here to look to make sure cotter pins are in place for all the fittings and so forth. And then we come in through here, and then of course we lift the elevator to make sure it's nice and smooth when it moves up and down. That's important. This of course is an anti-servo trim tab. It adjusts in here, as you notice, as you move up or down. So we're checking all these. Great shape. Coming through here, of course we got our ELT antenna here. This is that aux tank. This comes in really handy. The Continental engines in the Cessnas burn less fuel than the Lycomings per hour, and then you put on top of that these aux tanks, and you can get some great usable fuel. So this is 29.4 gallons. So I'll tell you the little bit of advantage of this guy. This one takes up some of the room in the baggage compartment. You notice I had that floor there. So, but the big advantage of this is that you don't add another 3 feet to the wingspan. So the flint tip tanks, which we have in our 206 and we really like, adds 3 feet to the wingspan of the plane. So by using this in here, kind of saves you a little bit of wingspan, which could be important depending upon your hangar that you have in here. The flaps, we haven't lowered our flaps today. We're just, as I showed, just talking about the airplane rather than doing a full pre-flight. But we'll go through and they check it, of course. We roll them down like on any of the Cessnas. And then over here, you can see here, you'll see that outline for the passenger side. That's where that window can open if you need to as an emergency egress, as well as if you want to do it on the ground for extra air. But this airplane has really nice air conditioning, so there's really no reason to do that. So coming along here, go here and check everything about the plane. Pretty much standard for a Cessna. Coming in through here, all the things. So if you've flown a 172, you can fly a 182. You can fly a Cardinal. You can fly the 206, the 210, etc., 207s. So 205s. There are not too many of those around anymore, but they're all pretty similar. Very similar design. Different control fields. You feel heavier. This one I actually find easier to land than our 206. Our 206 is really nose heavy. This doesn't seem to be as nose heavy as our 206. So coming back through here. And of course, this is nice because then if your passengers want to make sure that they look cool, they can look at their own mirror and through here. So you've got that. Of course, that's to check the gear. Then we got these other intercooler scoops over here. And as I said, the Riley intercooler makes a huge difference to be able to cool things down, and the ducting that we have in this particular plane to cool things. And then we have our air filters. And then this particular airplane has a brand new air conditioning compressor. Pretty expensive process of doing that and replacing all the hoses. We just had these done on the P210 to just make sure that it has nice ice-cooled air conditioning, which really helps, especially on pressurized airplanes. If you can imagine, if you haven't flown a pressurized airplane and you're in any kind of warm condition, right? Already you're hot and sitting there and you got very little air movement in the cabin and maybe the window open, right? Well, then if you're pressurized, imagine that air coming in is even warmer and you sealed up even more. So air conditioning becomes pretty much critical for that. We've got a hot prop on this. The hot prop on this simply means that inside here are these very, very fine wires. And the very fine wires heat up and keep this portion of the propeller free of ice. The whole idea is that you don't need it out here because it's spinning fast enough. But this is all, and all Fiki airplanes have it. That's flight into known icing again. And then also a lot of airplanes have that are not Fiki, but just as a safety backup. Doesn't give you the right to go into icing when you shouldn't, because the rest of the plane's not protected, but it does give you a little bit of extra protection in through there. So that is a nice quick intro of the 210, and particularly this P210 aircraft that we have here. This one, we actually have it for sale right now. It's a great airplane, about 5,200 hours total time, a little bit over 500 on the engine and the propeller. Both of those are new a few years ago, so those are not overhaul times. Those are times on new components, which makes a big difference from just overhaul. It's got a really nice Garmin package we're going to show you inside that upgrade, and then it's a nice airplane. At some point, it'll go to a happy home, but we also wanted to introduce people to the P210s. Now we're going to take you for a tour of the interior of this P210. Come aboard. Of course, these are the windows we talked about. This is a captain's or pilot's window that you can open up. This is for a door seal, so it keeps it a little bit better seal for pressurization in through here. Then in here we've got our Garmin PFD display, which is amazing. And then of course we also have a JDM over here, which is just excellent to be able to do all your EIS system. That works extremely well in this aircraft. Well-known company to be able to do that. And through here we have a Sandia Aerospace standby, because whenever you have electronic PFD, you've got to have a standby indicator. And then of course in through here we have two GTN 750s. And then coming across, there's our intercooler, because we have that intercooler we talked about. It actually tells you the temperature, what's going on in here. Oops, press that, just come back up to where we were. And through here, our fuel flow, our engine instruments. Nice panel. A lot of money was spent to upgrade this panel. This has the King KFC 200 autopilot, works really, really well on this particular aircraft. And then in here we got our fuel. So we got 44.5 gallons on each wing, plus we have that fuel in the back, so that gives you plus another almost 30 gallons back there, so it gives you about 120 gallons roughly. Nice plane. We've done a nice job upgrading the panel on this one, the circuit breakers, so updated from the original ones that were in there, so it looks a lot nicer. And through here, see the airplane. Will pull this back a little bit so you can see the panel a little bit. Nicely equipped airplane, very nice. And through there, some planes have spoilers. This one does not, but you can put actually spoilers on its speed brakes. So it's a nice setup. This is a great plane. You have all this capability to be able to do it, to fly cross country, and it's quiet. The pressurization really does help. And then this plane has, we just have this figured out, just configured with one seat in the middle and then the bench seat in the back. You can put another seat in there too, but it gets a little crowded. Even the bench seat in the back gets a little crowded. So you can decide what you want. Some people just take out the middle seats and give people lots of leg room in the back. So it makes sense to be able to have that. So you've got some nice options, whatever works for you. So that's the interior of the P210. Nice comfortable plane, nice cross country flyer. You can go up to altitude, go up to 23,000. Most people fly in the teens, but it has a nice capability and the durability of a Cessna aircraft, as well as the ability to go to a lot of places in terms of its landing performance and takeoff performance. So a good choice. If you're looking for a pressurized airplane, they're at a pretty reasonable price compared to some other aircraft. In fact, when we were looking at these, some of these aren't appreciably more than a really old 172 these days. Operating costs, it depends. The annuals, as long as you get one that's really nice and clean, a lot of money is spent on this one to keep this one updated, then your annuals aren't too bad. It all depends on the aircraft. The retractable gear does add a little bit more onto the inspection costs. Same thing with pressurization, but my experience with pressurization is it's so rock solid, I rarely have any problems with that. So part of it is just being able to do that gear retraction test and a few others. Otherwise, there's not a big difference between the P210 and a Turbo 210 or a 206 in terms of inspection costs from our experience owning these aircraft. So I hope you enjoyed our little tour of the 210 series and the P210 in particular on this one. Subscribe to our channels on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and Tigre and I will put out a whole bunch of other videos. We've got number one that's now, but on other aircraft for people to enjoy. Thanks again. Oh, and our website also is personalwings.com.